Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by the Hard Truth Distilling Company in Brown County, Indiana.
So for the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world, it's time!
Three on the way. Oh! It went in! It went in! And Indiana wins the ball game!
Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni!
Float game for the win! Ayler's gone. Come on, touchdown, Indy! Woo! I-U! America! They got a football team now!
Pretty simple. I win. Google me.
You know that I'm the cream of the crop.
Now, from the Hard Truth Studios, here's Jim Coyle.
Hello, everybody. Welcome aboard to another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Glad to have you along on this Wednesday or is it Thursday? It's Wednesday all day. Great. Make sure we're on the right day. Lots to talk about. Glad to have you, like I said, no matter where or how you're listening on one of our great radio station affiliates, like 97.7, ESPN The Ref, always the right call down in Evansville. Up in the region, on the voice of the region, 1230 a.m., 104.7 FM, WJOB, and in Fort Wayne on Fort Wayne Sports Station, 1380 The Fan. You've got it locked in the right spot. Leave it here all day. And if you're following along on social media, YouTube, whatever, make sure you have subscribed and hit the like button and all that good stuff. Notifications toggle, all that stuff that goes along with it. But I hope everyone's having a great start to the day. Lots to talk about. Big Ten Media Day is getting underway. Kurt Cignetti. It was great. We'll talk about that as he answers critics who are, I don't know what it is about these guys. Why are they still? Indiana played better than Tennessee did. They played better than other teams played in the CFP. So because they lost to two teams last year that ended up playing in the national championship, even though they played the two teams that played in the national championship the year before, whose fault is that? Washington wasn't great. Michigan, however, didn't have a great season, but let's see. They beat Ohio State at Ohio State. Then they beat Alabama of the SEC, who was supposed to be in the CFP, in a bowl game. I'll be honest with you. I try to stay as neutral as possible, and I want to sound as neutral as possible. But this stuff is ridiculous. I'm sick and tired of it. People are just idiots if they think that Indiana didn't belong. They didn't just win games. They eviscerated their opponents. Eviscerated. I remember they hadn't trailed in a game until they went to East Lansing. I was there. They got down 10-0 quick. And we're like, ooh, wow. Hey, what's going on here? But then what happened? They ran off 47 unanswered points and won that game 47-10. I'm just, it's ridiculous because I've never seen a team so maligned like Indiana is being maligned in this situation. And why are they bitching and moaning? We're in a new season. That season is gone. Indiana, I'm predicting, damn it, I did not want to do this soon. We're not quite at football season, but I predict Indiana makes a return to the college football playoff. Right? I'll say this. I think Indiana goes a minimum 10-2 this year. I did not want to say that this early, but I think they're going to go 10-2. And if they're 10-2 with their only losses at Oregon and at Penn State, there's no way they don't get included in the CFP because they will have won 10 games, number one. They will have beaten a probably top 15 team in Illinois at the time. They will win at Iowa. And that would be better than Ohio State's record last year, who lost at home in the last game of the season to Michigan, who Indiana had beat a few weeks before. So it's convenient how people forget about a lot of that stuff. They also forget that Tennessee, the vaunted SEC team, was crushed in Columbus, much worse than Indiana was. Yet it's going to go on. It's just ridiculous and silly, but it is what it is. And I think that changes after this season. And I say that because they've got a schedule this season that there is no complaining about. Cignetti had his, hopefully we can get some Cignetti quotes out that you can actually hear, but I will certainly be letting you know what some of those were as he took a shot. He responded to Barry Odom. I get it. Maybe he's a new guy in town and Purdue was kind of having their way with Indiana, but that turned around. When you get your ass beat, and he wasn't there, I'll grant it, but when your team gets their ass beat 66-0, the worst loss in Purdue football history, trailing only the 67-3 loss to Notre Dame the same season. You probably shouldn't be popping off. For one thing, I would not be surprised to see Indiana put 70 points on Purdue this year because of that. And I would be all for it. I'm usually not to get into all that, but I'm like, you know what? Let's have some fun. Let's do it. I'm looking forward. I hope for Indiana's sake, I hope for Kurt Cignetti's sake, that they can shock the world even more by going 11-1, even by possibly winning at Oregon. Tough place to win. Tough team. Not sure what they're going to be like. They're going to have a new quarterback this year. Indiana's got a new quarterback, but pretty established what his credentials are. Indiana is going to be a lot better than people think. They have a better team this year than they did a year ago. Elijah Surratt, Aiden Fisher, Mikael Kamara also out there. But some of the quotes from Kurt Cignetti, the decision to cancel the non-conference series with Virginia, he took a shot at the SEC. That was a scheduling philosophy that began before I was hired, but I did sign off on it upon being hired before our first season, okay? Look, here's the bottom line, okay? He likes to say okay a lot. We picked up an extra home game, and we played 9 conference games. The 2 best conferences in college football, any football guy that's objective will tell you, is the Big Ten and the SEC, all right? 12 of the 16 SEC teams play 3 G5 or an FCS game. Hello, people. That's because they only play 8 conference games. 12 of those teams play 36 games, 29 G5 games, and 7 FCS games, and 1 less conference game. All right? That's Coach Cignetti. So we figured we would just adopt SEC scheduling philosophy, you know? Some people don't like it. I'm more focused in on those 9 conference games. Bam. There you go. And again, I've talked about these 9 conference games and the fact that The SEC is not going to get their way with the CFP because the Big Ten is not going to relent until they go to 9 conference games. It's baloney. Step up. Stock up. Sorry, DD. Took that from you there. But it's ridiculous. No, why is nobody talking about the SEC? Are you kidding me? I don't care if some of those teams, like Alabama, for example, take on a Wisconsin team on top of their other 3 non-con games. But look at those other 3 non-con games. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Dylann Sinn will join us. We'll talk more about Big Ten Football Media Days, get his takes on it as well. Plenty more as well. In addition, Kyle Neddenriep should be joining us today. We'll get the update on football prep, but a lot going on with Big Ten Football Media Days right now. Let's see. I think there was some basketball news, but today's football. Back with more from the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios after these messages.
Andy Moore Honda is Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer for a reason. Buy a new Honda and get a 3-month break from car payments. That's right, no payments for 90 days. That includes the all-new, all-electric Honda Prologue, and you get it for just 0.9% financing. Or the 2024 Honda Ridgeline Black Edition or the Honda Accord LX, both for just 1.9% financing. Get more to your door from AndyMooreHonda.com, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer and your best place for new and used vehicles. If you're looking for a new home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore from Brick and Ivy Realty. Cheryl Sizemore has over 2 decades of experience, and that could be the difference in getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl at CherylSizemooreSells@gmail.com or 317-701-0838. That's 317-701-0838. Let Cheryl Sizemore sell or find your new home today. Located on 325 acres in beautiful Brown County, Indiana, Hard Truth Distilling Company is the biggest and the best craft distillery around. While Hard Truth is already known for producing internationally awarded whiskeys and spirits like Hard Truth Sour Mash Bourbons, Sweet Mash, and Hard Road Ryes, as well as their cinnamon vodka and the always popular toasted coconut rum. Hard Truth Distillery offers so much more. With a full-service restaurant, ATV, and distillery tours, as well as live music, you can spend an entire day at Hard Truth Distillery while making your entire family or group happy. And that's the Hard Truth. Hard Truth products are available across Indiana, as well as many other states. So no matter where you shop, if they don't carry your favorite Hard Truth product, tell them you want the truth, the Hard Truth. Hard Truth Distilling Company encourages you to enjoy all of their products responsibly and to never drink and drive. Welcome back to the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios on this Wednesday, joined as always by Dylann Sinn from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette. How are you doing, my brother?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on, Jim.
Always a pleasure. I'm sure you were paying attention. Neither of us went to Media Days this year, which is a first for me. But it just wouldn't have worked out for the show to do the show out there because of the 3-hour time difference. But the Hoosier.com was out there, and there's plenty of coverage, all coverage at the Hoosier.com. If you go there, you can find all of the audio, video from that day and the many, many quotes, I will say. Nice quotes. Plenty of great quotes. As a matter of fact, one of the articles on the Hoosier.com right now is the 6 key quotes from Kurt Cignetti during his podium session. But I was earlier in the when I first came on, Dylan, I was talking about, I don't know, I shouldn't be probably. I'm still amazed by this incessant bitching about Indiana's schedule last year. And I'm like, wait a minute. They played the 2 teams that played in the national championship game the year before. They got no control over what happens to them because in today's age of football, how things can change. Washington was not Washington. Michigan was not quite Michigan, although they did beat the national champion, who is one of only 2 teams Indiana lost to who both played in the national championship game. So, and not only did Indiana beat a Michigan team that beat Ohio State, that same Michigan team beat Alabama, who SEC pundits were bitching weren't in the college football playoffs. So Alabama lost to Michigan. They lost to Vanderbilt. That alone is enough. I'm sorry. I'm so tired of hearing who you beat. Who did you lose to? Why does that not carry as much stigma as who you beat? I don't get that.
Yeah, no, I don't understand it. It's driven me crazy for an entire year. I think that the thing to understand is this, right? Indiana went 11-1, and Alabama went 9-3 during the regular season. And they obviously they both lost their bowl games. But on top of that, if Alabama had gone 10-2, right? If they had beaten Tennessee and gone 10-2, they would have been in the playoff, probably seated ahead of Indiana, which Tennessee was, right? So the SEC has talked all year about, well, Indiana just had a better record, therefore they were seated higher and got in ahead of Alabama. That's not true. Indiana was behind a 10-2 team from the SEC. They just weren't behind a 9-3 team from the SEC. Like, I don't understand why this is so difficult for the SEC to grasp. If Alabama had
because
gone
the
9-3,
SEC is the SEC. They do not see anything other than the SEC. Yes. And but they're going to have their comeuppance. They're going to have to go to 9 conference games. Period. That's going to happen.
I really think it is. And it's interesting because I think the commissioner has even realized that. Sankey's been out the last couple of weeks for as much as I complain about Sankey and his incessant politicking for his own league. He has come out and said he thinks 9 games is the way to go. I think that's right. I think he realizes that the Big Ten has been able to use this as a cudgel and say, hey, you guys only play 8 conference games, and then maybe on top of that 1 game that's against a decent team. So you're playing the same number of Power 5 games, the Power Conference games that we are, right? I think that's the biggest thing, and that's basically what Cignetti said when he talked about an SEC scheduling model, right? Basically, he talked about you're playing 9 Power Conference games. The SEC does it by playing 8 conference and 1 good team out of conference, generally speaking. The Big Ten, or Indiana in the Big Ten, does it by playing nine conference games. It's the same thing. 8 + 1 is the same as 9. It really is. I think that is something that the SEC is really struggling to grasp, is that 8 + 1 is the same as 9. And so they are, and that's what Cignetti said yesterday when he talked about it. It was kind of tongue in cheek, but he said, look, we're adopting an SEC scheduling model. We are playing 9 games against good teams, essentially. That is the idea. And the idea from the SEC is, well, it doesn't count because you have the teams at the bottom of the Big Ten are not as good as the teams at the bottom of the SEC. I don't know if that's true. I guess on paper they are, but last year the last place team in the SEC lost to Toledo 41-17. So I'm not entirely convinced about this whole argument. Well, the SEC is way deeper than the Big Ten, so every game, I don't believe that for a second.
It appears to be deeper because they only play 8 conference games. That 1 extra game, that is how many teams the SEC have? 16?
16, yeah.
So that extra conference games, that's 8 more opportunities for someone to take a loss. They don't want that. That's the thing that has kept them ahead of the Big Ten in perception, because, I mentioned Alabama. Okay, Alabama has Wisconsin on the schedule. That's great. I guarantee you their other 3 games are cupcakes.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter. But not all teams have a Wisconsin on their schedule. Kentucky does play Louisville. I'll give them that. But their other 3 games, cupcakes. So I just, it's time for them to grow up. But the thing is, they are going to go to 9 games because Greg Sankey has realized they're not going to get what they want in the CFP, because the Big Ten is not going to budge until that happens. And the ACC is going to have to follow suit. And that's really going to be worse for the ACC because they're already bad enough. And so you add another loss to those teams, and that knocks them down, which is better for the Big Ten and the SEC because you'll have more at-large spots to be had. And I think that the Big Ten is probably going to have 5 to 6 teams fighting for CFP recognition each year. The SEC, that maybe a couple more, but if you're at 9 conference games, it will be harder to do that. And that's the thing. Just make it all equal. You've got to be on equal ground. This has been totally ridiculous how it's been so far like this. So the fact that the SEC needs to be hit in the head with a hammer to literally repeatedly hit in the head with a hammer. And finally, Greg Sankey's got a headache from it and realized that, okay, we can't get what we want unless we give some. They're not used to giving. They're used to just say, oh, we're going to do whatever we want. Well, that's part of it. Greg Sankey's not, I think he's used to getting his way.
Yeah. Well, I do think the most fascinating situation in this sport right now to me is that the Big Ten and the SEC are at odds about what to do about the playoff, right?
You're right.
For a long time, they were in lockstep and they were kind of calling the shots together, and now they disagree, right? So basically what the Big Ten wants is they want guaranteed bids. They want 4 bids for the Big Ten, 4
now,
for
I
the
thought
SEC.
Originally the SEC was the one that wanted the guarantee bids.
Right. I think they kind of I think the conferences kind of came up with it together, or the SEC came up with it and the Big Ten got on board. But the SEC has shifted. They now want what they call a 5+11 model, where it's 5 automatic bids for the conference champions and then 11 at-larges, right? The Big Ten wants these guaranteed bids. They want 4, 2 for the Big 12, 2 for the ACC, 1 for the group of 5. And then 3 at-larges, depending on whether you go to 14 or 16, right? And so the Big Ten has kind of said, we want to do these automatic bids, and they've stuck to that. And the SEC has moved away from that. I think because the SEC has realized that if you have 11 at-larges, that all of their politicking that they do is going to be able to get more of their teams in, more than likely.
And the false perception that the SEC is superior will aid in that. They're thinking that will aid in that with the committee. But if they have to go to 9 games, I think that changes that, because you're going to see teams with more losses.
Right. And so the SEC has the goal is to get to the 5+11. It's possible they have to go to 9 in order to get the 5+11. I think that might be the trade-off they have to end up making.
That is it.
I think the Big Ten knows that, and that's why they're pressing so hard. They're using the automatic bids thing as a cudgel to get the SEC to make the concession to 9 games, and then the Big Ten will more than likely make the concession to the playoff format. Now, the upshot of all of that is the playoff is still more than likely going to end up at 16 teams. But if the SEC does not agree to a 9-game conference schedule, there's a chance the playoff just sticks at 12 teams. Like, the assumption had been for a long time that by 2026 that the playoff would have expanded to 14 or 16 teams. Right now, there's this deadlock that seems like it might be preventing that from happening. We might just stick at 12 for a couple more years here. So I'm fascinated by the way that plays out, because it's the first time since the Big Ten and SEC really became the 2 super conferences a couple of years ago. This is the first time we've really seen them go to war with.
I don't know that
So I'm fascinated advocating for his league, and Tony Petitti is kind of thought of as this guy who's a little bit more behind the scenes. He doesn't talk as much. He doesn't do as much public kind of boosting of his league. But now we're going to get to see how he does behind the scenes, right? Because the outcome of this is going to tell us a lot about the way he's able to build a coalition for what he wants. And I think I'm fascinated to see how that plays out.
Yeah, Petitti talked yesterday about it, and he doubled down on his preference for a 16-team format that grants automatic qualifiers, particularly the 4-4-2-2-1 model. But where's my math going wrong here? That's 13.
Well, then you have 3 at-larges on top of that.
Still,
the idea would be 3 at-larges on top of that. Yeah. And so obviously then that leaves a way for Notre Dame to get in, right? Because Notre Dame would not agree to anything that doesn't involve outlaws.
You know what? I'm so sick of Notre Dame. I'm so sick of Notre Dame. Join a conference. Join a freaking conference. You are even though they made it to the national championship last year. I'll be honest with you. I'm not a big fan of the Big Ten's model. It's not the four automatic qualifiers to the SEC and the Big Ten. It's the two automatic qualifiers to the ACC and the Big 12. Now, the Big 12 has been pretty solid. ACC sucks in football. They're terrible. There should be no way that a horrible team gets in, and you should have to earn. So I think the ACC and the Big 12 should be granted, the champion gets in, but the rest of them and a group of 5, I don't care about the group of 5. I'm sorry. I want the best teams. And the group of 5 is not that. Boise State is not one of these top teams where they weren't last year. And whoever else made it in on that deal. But we look at, you mentioned Tennessee, they got the crap kicked out of them by Ohio State, worse than Indiana did. But the SEC doesn't talk about that. It's just so I think that I don't mind the 4-4 to the Big Ten and the SEC because they're always going to have at least 4 teams deserving of the play, except for last year. The SEC did not. So So it's interesting to me because can you imagine if they played 9 conference games last year?
Right. Well, so the difference is that we're talking about last year was a 12-team playoff, right? And this would be a 16 team. And the thing is, and this is I think what the SEC has kind of realized, is that if there had been a 16-team playoff last year, right? So we're talking about adding 3 extra teams to the teams that got in last year. All 3 of those teams would have been SEC. It would have been Alabama, South Carolina, and Ole Miss. Those would have been the 3 teams added. The SEC would have had 6 teams in a 16-team playoff last year. And I think because the reason for that is because they were ranked 14th, 15th, and 16th in the final rankings last year. So I think the SEC has realized that they were right on the cusp of having 6 teams in. Now, obviously, as you said, part of that is because they play a 9-game conference schedule, and they had teams that were able to go 9-3 because they played really cupcake out of conference schedules. So I think the dynamics would change somewhat in a 16-team playoff. Now, the reason the Big Ten has proposed, the stated reason is what Petitti said yesterday. The reason for the format, the 4-4-2-2-1, the reason they're doing that is to try to take some of the pressure off of the committee, right? That is the idea, is to say, hey, these are the teams that they're going to be in. We're going to take 13 teams and say, these guys are in. You guys only need to focus on the last 3, right? And so I think that they're trying to take some pressure off the committee. They're trying to make it more objective rather than subjective. So we don't have these arguments about, well, the committee did this and that, right? And the reason they have the bids for the ACC, the Big 12, and the Group of 5, that's an attempt by the Big Ten and Tony Petitti to coalition build, right? To get because you have to vote on this thing. You have to, the commissioners, the ACC and the Big 12, and the other Group of 5 commissioners, they get votes on this thing. So you're trying to give them some concession in order to get them to vote for your idea, right? And so that's why you gave them the automatic bid, so they'll vote for it. So you get more people on your side. And that's why I think the Big Ten has the upper hand here, because they have the Big 12, the ACC, and the Group of 5 on their side because of those automatic bids. Now, the other part of this that was talked about a little bit yesterday was, how do you decide the 4 automatic bids in your conference for the Big Ten and the SEC? The Big Ten's idea is, the Big Ten's idea is not to do the top 4. That is not what the Big Ten plans to do. No. So what they would do is you play the season, right? You play the 12-game season. And then you have so you have the conference championship game, which is 1 versus 2, right? Then on top of that, in the same week, you have a 13th game for the teams seeded 3 through 6. You have 3 versus 6 and 4 versus 5. And the winners of those games, 3 versus 6 and 4 versus 5, get automatic bids. That's the Big Ten's vision, is extra games on championship week. Basically what they're calling playing games, decided on the field games. And so they wouldn't do and the SEC could decide to do that or not if we end up going to this format. But that's the Big Ten's idea, because the Big Ten has 18 teams, and because you only have 9 conference games, there's 9 teams in your league that you have not played. Half the league you have not, or I guess 8 because you have to count yourself. 8 teams in your league you have not played. So there's a good chance that one of those teams that you're playing in that extra game is someone you haven't played yet, and it would help to suss out who's better on the field. That is the idea behind this from the Big Ten. Personally, I think 5 plus 11 is fine. I don't have a problem with 5 plus 11. I thought 5 plus 7 worked great last year. I thought it was fine. I had no problem with it.
The right teams got in.
I thought the right teams got in last year. The committee did a fine job last year. I had no qualms with any decision the committee made last year. And I thought IU probably should have been ranked higher.
They should have been. They should have hosted a home game.
I think they probably should. I guess that the only change to the format I would have made last year is that I don't like the conference champs getting the top 4 seeds. I think it should be the conference champs get automatic bids, but not automatic top 4 seeds, which would have led Indiana.
It's like this year. It's where you're ranked, and that's how it should be.
Right, and if that had been the format last year, IU would have hosted a home game because they were ranked 8th
against like Boise State or something.
Boise State, who was ranked 9th. It would have been IU, Boise State in Bloomington had that been the format last year, even if the rankings had not changed at all. So I had no problem. Like, people talk about last year in the playoff, like it was horrible, like it was a totally failed experiment. I don't understand that at all. I thought it was terrific. I thought it was just fine. I mean, I personally don't even understand the drive to go to 16 immediately. I thought 12 was fine, but if you want to get 16, I'm not totally opposed to it, just because, more games is more games. But I think it's fine. I think if you wanted to kind of roll out with the format from last year, I would have no problem with it, which is why if we're going to expand, just an expansion of that format is fine with me, really. So I think we're probably going to end up on 5 plus 11. I think this 4-4-2-2-1 is pretty convoluted, but again, I think that depends on the SEC going to 9. I think the only way the Big Ten is going to agree to it if the SEC goes to 9.
Oh, there's no doubt. That's the Big Ten now holds the trump card, and they know it because they're not going to agree. But despite the current impasse between the 2 most powerful leagues, Petitti remained optimistic that a compromise could be reached with the SEC. We're obviously not in the same place on these discussions, he said. I think the goal would be to bring people back together. Every time the 2 leagues have come together, good things have happened. He also reaffirmed that the Big Ten and SEC remain the key voices in the CFP. Well, of course, we know that. They're basically running the show. Yes. That's it. And everybody else is going to have to do what they say. Yes. So the SEC knows this, but they also know that they are not the one leading the parade. It's the Big Ten and the SEC. And without the Big Ten, they're simply not going to get anything that they want. So they're going to eventually relent. I don't understand why the coaches are so opposed to this in the SEC. Part of it is because one of their games, I can think of, like Kentucky, they played Louisville. Yeah, that's a tough non-con game. I'll give you that. But if they have 9 games and are still scheduling a tough non-con game, then critics like about Indiana dropping Virginia. Okay, then that would be warranted.
Then you have a point, right? Yeah,
then that would be warranted. But until then, it is not.
Yes, I think that here's where I think the eventual compromise is going to come in, right? Because what the problem for the SEC and the reason the coaches are opposed to it is that a lot of SEC teams have a game like Louisville, right? They have an out-of-conference game that is very important. So Clemson plays South Carolina, or South Carolina plays Clemson, right? Florida plays Florida State. Georgia plays Georgia Tech, which, okay, fine, it's Georgia Tech, but they were good last year, right? They almost lost that game. A lot of them have a rival that they play out of conference. And so I think the compromise we're probably going to end up seeing is the SEC goes to 9 games, and then the Big Ten has a pledge to play at least one out of conference power game. So like you would have to play Virginia, right? Like I think that is the compromise that you can reach, is that the Big Ten plays 9 plus a non-con game, that the SEC plays 9 plus a non-con game against somebody, right? I think that's the compromise we're going to end up reaching here. And I'm not sure when that's going to happen. It might be 2 years down the road as these guys continue sniping at each other. But I think that's eventually where we're going to get to. And I think whenever we get there, that will end up paving the way for the 5+11 format. Everyone will get some of what they want, and everyone will go home somewhat mad at the other one, and we'll have a solution. So I think that is probably what's going to happen. It's just a question of how long it takes for one conference or the other to back down.
Yeah, and there's so much more to talk about. We'll take a quick break. Dylann Sinn from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette with me. We're back with more to the Hard Truth Distilling Company Studios and Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle after these messages.
Know a team or group needing a fundraiser? Boost Fundraising raises more money faster and offers the most unique and user-friendly online fundraiser in the nation. Your team receives personalized fundraising pages for each team member. Free team-branded promo gifts shipped to each donor. Boost Fundraising does it all. Sports teams, marching bands, charity causes, and community groups. Go to boostfundraising.com and be sure to enter the promo code COYLE, that's COYLE, to receive a discounted fundraiser. Located on 325 acres in beautiful Brown County, Indiana, Hard Truth Distilling Company is the biggest and the best craft distillery around. While Hard Truth is already known for producing internationally awarded whiskeys and spirits like Hard Truth Sour Mash Bourbons, Sweet Mash, and Hard Road Ryes, as well as their cinnamon vodka and the always popular Toasted Coconut Rum. Hard Truth Distillery offers so much more. With a full-service restaurant, ATV, and distillery tours, as well as live music, you can spend an entire day at Hard Truth Distillery while making your entire family or group happy. And that's the Hard Truth. Hard Truth products are available across Indiana, as well as many other states. So no matter where you shop, if they don't carry your favorite Hard Truth product, tell them you want the truth, the Hard Truth. Hard Truth Distilling Company encourages you to enjoy all of their products responsibly and to never drink and drive. Welcome back to the Hard Truth Distilling Company Studios on this Wednesday, Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, and I'm joined by Dylann Sinn from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette. We're talking Big Ten football media days because that's what happened yesterday, going on today and tomorrow, because it takes 3 days now, and it's out in Las Vegas. Why Las Vegas? Well, the Big Ten likes to dip their toe wherever they can to extend their footprint, which I don't blame them for that. But when media days is a different situation, when it went to Minnesota that time, which everybody hated, the first time it was there, I was the only media representation from Indiana, which is shocking because Indiana has the largest media contingent in the Big Ten by far. Contingent, yeah. Yes. Or is that right? But I don't know what it was like in Las Vegas. Las Vegas is a hell of a lot funner place to go than Minneapolis. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I'm curious as what it looked like. I'll have to ask the guys from the Hoosier.com. They were out there, but they mentioned that maybe that some things were going on in Indianapolis, that it wasn't possible this year. The WNBA All-Star game was going on, but I cannot imagine that really doing anything because it's not that big of a deal. But hopefully it's back in Indianapolis next year. But they are going to be having the men's and women's basketball tournaments out in Las Vegas. And I would not be shocked at some point to see the football championship game go out there to visit. Indianapolis is just the best for everything, but we'll see. We shall see. As far as revenue sharing, Tony Petitti addressed that.
no change. They are leaving for now. That is being left up to the individual institutions. And most institutions that are football schools are going to do probably the same thing. There will be some differences, I'm sure, but most are probably going to go 75% to football, 15% to men's basketball, 5% to women's basketball, and is there 5% left over? I didn't add that up.
Yeah, there's 5% left over. That's 95%.
So that gives you 5% to do something else with, but that's how it should be. And if people don't understand that, well, then you need some math courses, because football brings in probably more than 75% of the revenue. And you have to feed the machine that brings in the revenue. Men's basketball brings in revenue. Women's basketball does not. It's a losing proposition. Women's basketball loses money. So anybody that is clamoring for equal payment is out of their mind. I don't care if they're men, women, or Martians. If you don't bring in the revenue, you don't deserve a bigger portion of the revenue. It's simple math. It's real life. That's how it is in the business world. If you have a company that has a couple of different divisions, a division that loses you money, you're not going to give them massive amounts more. It's just common sense. So there should not be any arguments there, in my opinion.
I mean, to me, the biggest question is what a school like Indiana does about, like, so you said the baseline is 75 and 15 for football.
That's right. Kind of something it seems to be what we've heard.
That seems to be what we've heard, right? And a lot of schools have kind of said that's what we're going to do. Does Indiana go 70-20 because they care so much about basketball? Like, is that something that they have to? And that has been my biggest question about all of this, right? Scott Dolson is going to have to decide if Cignetti and Darren DeVries come to him at the same time and say, hey, we both have a 4-star recruit that we need extra money for. How is he going to make that decision? Does he automatically go with basketball because Indiana's basketball school? Like, I assume probably, but is that going to make Cignetti upset, right? Because the whole point of what Indiana has done the last couple of years is say, hey, we're going to care about football too. And so are there going to be difficult conversations that Scott Dolson has to have with some of these programs? And again, it's the same thing with Terry Moore. If Terry Moore comes and say, hey, I have a 5-star recruit here that wants to come, if we kick in an extra $10,000, can they find that in the budget somewhere, right? Like, that is the question to me.
Why? Yeah. This is where NIL comes in.
Right. And so there was some news about this that was significant yesterday. So a couple of weeks ago, the College Sports Commission, the CSC, the new body that is overseeing the NIL, right? They're the new cops on the beat, making sure that you don't spend more than the $21.5 million unless it's for actual advertising, right? They released this basically guidance that said, look, if you have a collective, the collective cannot distribute money just for the purpose of getting an athlete paid, right? So the example they gave was like, you cannot do an autograph signing that the collective set up just for the purpose of getting that player paid. It has to be like an autograph signing at a sports card shop because the sports card shop is then making money. That's the difference they tried to make. And they called it a valid business purpose. You are not allowed to go beyond the 21.5 unless there is a valid business purpose for the advertising that you're doing. And so
that's not going to be hard to find, I don't think.
Yes, but the collectives were very upset about that, and the CSC started denying some people, like, because every NIL deal above $600, this is separate from revenue sharing now. Every NIL deal above $600 has to be submitted to this College Sports Commission, and they have to give it a yay or nay. And they were declining a lot of these deals over the last couple of weeks. And so the plaintiffs in the House case, the plaintiffs' lawyers basically said, hey, this is not in the spirit of the settlement that we just went through all this trouble to make. You guys are overstepping your bounds here. And they threatened to go to the judge and get them to say, hey, this is not right. You need to back off. And so they got in a room with the CSC. And yesterday there was a settlement a settlement for the settlement, basically, which was, okay, we're backing off. You can now go back. The collectives can now the collectives can now set up appearances like that again, right? Like
they're gonna lose if they get challenged in court,
right?
They're gonna lose.
Basically, I think they realized that they backed off yesterday.
You cannot prevent people from making money. It's just you can't.
And so basically, what it was for about 2 weeks since that guidance was released, for 2.5 weeks, we had a hard cap of $21.5 million. It was going to be really hard for schools to find other money for their players. Now we're back to having a soft cap again, right? Now,
because if they didn't do it, it was we would be just like where we were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, with all the SEC money going under the table.
Exactly.
Illegal payments. This is, and in this era, it is a lot easier to make illegal payments. Probably, well, not really, I guess. If it's an illegal payment, that if you get caught, it's illegal payment because it has to run through these two channels. There are two channels and that's the NIL and the revenue share. But I don't see NIL being slowed down by, if they're doing it right. Like Indiana had it set up with these companies before, and they had it set up to where they were doing charity work. That could still work in that model.
Yes,
but
absolutely.
But anybody they do it with, let's say Andy Moore, for example, that's easy. Hell, if I was Andy Moore, I would have him doing commercials.
Yeah.
That's we've seen. Oh, daggone it, what's her name? IU basketball player, blonde. I think she graduated.
Sydney Parrish.
Yes, making commercials, bank commercials.
She and Mike Kadick did the thing with the was it the vineyard or was the distillery? Excuse me.
Oh yeah, down at Huber's.
Yeah. So they did a joint advertisement, and that stuff is can be on top of revenue sharing, right? And so that's one of those things.
And that's how I don't think Indiana will have a problem, or Michigan will have a problem with all of their different donors, because guess what? Most of them are business owners.
Yes.
Boom.
Yeah. Right.
So that will be extraordinarily easy to me to take care of. What anything come out yesterday from Cignetti? What did you like? What did you hear? What did that mean to you?
Yeah, the biggest thing to me was positive injury reports on Marion Knighton and Drew Evans. Knighton is the corner from Northern Illinois, who was one of their big transfer portal pickups. They expect him to be an important piece for them this year. He had suffered an injury toward the end of spring practice, but he seems like he is trending in a good direction. I think that's really important because you have a really good corner on one side of the field in D'Angelo Pons, one of the best in the country, right? But who do you have on the other side? Who do you have in the slot? They brought in Ryland Gandy from Pitt. They brought in a Marion Knight, and you still have Jamari Sharp. Outside of those, out of those three guys, you need to find a rotation that you really believe in. And I think a Marion Knighton being healthy and ready to go, hopefully at least by some point during fall camp, will be a huge boon for this team, and really give that defense a boost. Because if D'Angelo Pons is as good as we believe he's going to be, as good as he was last year, or even a little bit better, that one side of the field is going to be taken away. And if you can have a good competent player on the other side of the field, it's going to be really hard to throw the ball against man-to-man. So that to me was a huge thing. Drew Evans also apparently trending in a good direction according to Cignetti. I think that's huge because you're going to need some depth on that offensive line. We saw it last year. When Evans went down, they took a serious step back along that offensive line. So
no depth last year.
Absolutely. And so you're going to need some. And so him getting healthy is a really, really positive sign. So that was something that kind of flew under the radar, is those guys trending in a good direction, that I thought was really important.
And Pat Coogan, the addition of him to that line. I played golf yesterday with the guy who said he had played golf recently with Pat Coogan, and I forget who the other guy was, also a lineman. This guy I'm 6'1", and this guy had a couple inches on me, and he's like, they dwarfed me, and he was a big guy. And I'm like, well, I bet they're probably 6'5" and 320. That's the thing. Indiana has a Big Ten offensive line now. They have had them in the past where they've had some good guys that went to the NFL, but never really been known for the offensive line. But to me, this team has all of the pieces in place. You go from front to back on both ends. You start on the defense in the defensive backfield. You've got an All-American in D'Angelo Pons. You move up to linebacker. You've got an All-American in Aiden Fisher. You go to the defensive line. You've got an All-American in Mikael Kamara. Then you cross over to Indiana's offensive line now, which has been greatly upgraded with guys like Pat Coogan and the health of Drew Evans. Move to the quarterback. They have not taken a step back, might have taken a step up, not because Curtis Rourke wasn't extraordinarily good. I think that Fernando has a few intangibles that maybe Curtis didn't have. And then the running backs, the addition of Roman Hemby, of BB from UAB, and what they have already had, I think Green, they're good in every section of the game. They don't seem to have deficiencies.
Yeah. To me, the question is going to be up the middle on defense, right? Because you talked about Kamara, he's great. But you're losing CJ West and James Carpenter, who were two really good defensive tackles for you last year. So they brought in some defensive tackles from the portal, guys that they're really, really excited about. The kid from Toledo, the kid from Western Kentucky, Jose Wheeler. Those are guys that they believe in. The guy from Kent State, Toledo was CJ West, but they're excited about those guys, but they are going to need to perform, because you talk about having a Big Ten offensive line. You need to have a Big Ten defensive line also, and they did last year. CJ West was enormous for them. The fact that he was so good gave those linebackers, Jalen Walker, Aiden Fisher, and Trent Jones, they gave them opportunities to really get downhill repeatedly. Jalen Walker was so good at getting downhill, but the only reason that worked is because CJ West was eating blocks over and over and over again. And so they brought in guys in the defensive line to have that same kind of dynamic this year. Just a question of whether they hit, right? Because they're both coming up from lower levels, Conference USA and the MAC. Can they be really, really effective at the Big Ten level? You like to think so. You like their film. Cignetti liked their film. Just a question of whether they can deliver. That, to me, is the biggest question mark on this team. And even there, you feel like they have the pieces. It's just a question of whether it comes together.
Certainly up, buddy. Appreciate you as always. Look forward to seeing you soon. And we'll talk again. Dylann Sinn from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette.
Absolutely, Jim. Looking forward to it.
Thank you, buddy. Appreciate you as always. Hey, we've got more coming up from the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios. Jim Coyle, Indiana Sports Beat Radio. We're back with more after these messages.
If you're looking for a new home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore from Brick and Ivy Realty. Cheryl Sizemore has over 2 decades of experience, and that could be the difference in getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl at CherylSizemore@gmail.com or 317-701-0838. That's 317-701-0838. Let Cheryl Sizemore sell or find your new home today.
Located on 325 acres in beautiful Brown County, Indiana, Hard Truth Distilling Company is the biggest and the best craft distillery around. While Hard Truth is already known for producing internationally awarded whiskeys and spirits like Hard Truth Sour Mash Bourbons, Sweet Mash, and Hard Road Ryes, as well as their cinnamon vodka and the always popular Toasted Coconut Rum. Hard Truth Distillery offers so much more. With a full-service restaurant, ATV, and distillery tours, as well as live music, you can spend an entire day at Hard Truth Distillery while making your entire family or group happy. And that's the Hard Truth. Hard Truth products are available across Indiana, as well as many other states. So no matter where you shop, if they don't carry your favorite Hard Truth product, tell them you want the truth, the Hard Truth. Hard Truth Distilling Company encourages you to enjoy all of their products responsibly and to never drink and drive. When it comes to apparel and promotions, Freethink has you covered, literally, whether it's 24 or 200 shirts for sports leagues, businesses, or groups. Freethink Apparel and Promotions can also create your very own merchandising store. Freethink Apparel and Promotions did it for Indiana Sports Beat Radio, and they can do it for you. Whether it's screen printing, embroidery, digital printing, promotional products, vehicle wraps, or anything else under the promotional line. See what Freethink Apparel and Promotions can do for you at freethinkapparel.com. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Jim Coyle coming to you from the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios on this Wednesday, joined now by the Indy Stars, Kyle Neddenriep, who gearing up for another football season, man. Not much of a break as basketball over the summer, and football is upon us.
It is. It's here. It's I think 1 month from last night. August 22nd will be week 1 of the high school football season. So we're in the 1 month countdown now. So yeah, I've been rolling out some football preview stuff. Had our look at the top wide receivers today. Have run quarterbacks, running backs so far. We'll have some, obviously a lot of other stuff coming up too. But yeah, starting to get stuff off the ground. We have our super team photo shoots coming this week, so looking forward to that. And yeah, I love this time of year. High school football, it means the start of a new year, new school year, and love high school football. So really looking forward to it this season again.
Yeah, I am as well, because there are several recruits out there. We'll see how they're doing. Big Ten Media Days were just going on. I know that's not your model, but we've got Purdue and Indiana out there, and now Barry Odom. I understand that maybe kind of Kurt Cignetti did this last year. He made all that noise being in there, and everybody looked like, dude, you're Indiana, just chill. So now Barry Odom's at Purdue, who is the bottom dweller right now, but he kind of took a veiled shot at Indiana regarding their schedule, which I'm like, dude, your team got waxed 66-0 last season, the worst loss in program history. Why would you poke a bear like Kurt Cignetti? Because I could see them losing 76-0 this year with Kurt Cignetti, how he is. He won't forget that. And I'm like, that's just dumb, Barry. Dumb. I thought that was the dumbest thing he could have done.
Hey, but you're talking about it, so maybe it's it gave you some content, and
that's what, and I agree, because that's what Kurt Signetti did last year. He's taking a page out of his book.
Exactly. Well, yeah, I mean, these, I always I like that it's media days, because that means football's closer, but I also like, man, it's just it's mostly a lot of nothing. I mean, there's some things that come out of it that are, sort of interesting at times, or you get to hear different coach. I do enjoy, like last night I watched, some of the Big Ten Network. They kind of condense things down, and you watch some of the coaches. I did watch a little bit of that. But for the most part, it's I've been to these before, and when they had them in Chicago, and they are interesting to some extent, but yeah, I guess the biggest thing is it means football's closing in, which is good. But yeah, I don't, I get what I was a little surprised, Odom said that, but I guess, like I said, it's content for everybody. And it was interesting to see Cignetti respond to that. He said, what do I think of it? Paraphrasing, not much. So, meaning I didn't think about it very much, which, yeah, I mean, why would you?
I wish he would have said, all I remember is 66-0. That I'm surprised. I'm kind of surprised he didn't say something like that. But yeah, it's fun. All that means is, you know what? Maybe that's going to create a better rivalry, because while it hadn't been bad before, neither team had been good. So
right.
If Purdue can get back to being a solid program, and there's no reason they can't, if they're going to have the same amount of money. They're going to get 75% of that $20 million
to spend on football players. And Barry Odom is obviously he's a successful football coach. He's been good. So, and they've done well in recruiting. He also sees that the high school recruiting for the state of Indiana has really shifted. Indiana is now really, their recruiting has really risen. They are getting the guys in the state. They're getting guys to flip from teams, from guys in the state that, whether it's from Illinois or wherever, Louisville, flipping to Indiana. And he sees that too. And that's something Purdue had. They were the team that was really, I think, between the two, were dominating the recruiting in the state prior to Kurt Cignetti.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's, and I think Odom probably too is like, hey, what, we've got nothing to lose by me saying this. If anything, it raises our profile. It raises the, we lost 66-0. I mean, what, it can't get worse, right? I mean, or not much worse, you wouldn't think. So, I think that's probably a little bit part of it as well. But yeah, I mean, I think, Purdue has done pretty well recruiting the state. That's something, obviously I monitor that quite a bit. And, they've got, pretty late in this class, I would say, as far as, trying to get involved with guys. But, they got James Williams out of Lawrence Central. They went and got Kobe Cherry from Center Grove, when that's probably not a guy you maybe expected them to get based on his family history and where he's located at Center Grove. They got Brock Brownfield, a really good lineman from New Pal. So, they've gone out and gotten some good players in this class. The next class will be interesting too. I think IU's in a pretty good position with Monchin Sales from Lawrence North, who has all kinds of offers. He's a 4-star receiver who, everybody wants him. So, we'll see about that one. But yeah, IU's done well. I mean, Casimir Hicks will be a guy that, I love watching him play. He's so fast and elusive, and he's smaller, a smaller receiver who, I guess you could potentially see him moving to the defensive side and playing cornerback. But yeah, I mean, Trevor Gibbs kid from Crown Point, Blake Smythe from Franklin, who's just a beast of a defensive lineman, really quick off the line as well. And, so they've done well, from it in the state. CJ Cypress from Center Grove as well. So, but yeah, it'll be a good battle. I mean, again, you're battling, some of those top guys also too, or, like the Guilford kid from Northrop who went to Ohio State. When Ohio State gets involved, it's tough, but I think IU's at least raised their profile enough to say we're at least on the same block as Ohio State now, instead of, in a whole different neighborhood.
Yeah, and although there are still some of the big recruits are still being swayed out of state to whether it's Ohio State or where did James Finch, where did he end up?
JJ Finch went to Alabama. So yeah, that was that seemed like he was. He had those schools in the mix, but also had, when you have Alabama and LSU knocking on your door, and, that's kind of what happened there. And he had some other big ones as well. That was when I thought, Finch was probably going to leave the state most likely. So that one maybe not as surprising. There's some other ones out there, like the Bardo kid from who transferred to Elkhart going to Wisconsin. Another really good wide receiver, so you're not going to get everybody, but and some of these guys have other really good offers as well. So it's just, you're not going to get everybody, and it'll be, but if you can get some of those top 20 in-state guys, and I think that, obviously the coaching staffs want to have an impression and, within the footprint of the state, and have good relationships with those coaches. And, I think for the most part, both schools have done that pretty well in this upcoming class.
And something that still stands out is some of these guys will go to these big-time schools like Ohio State, maybe not get the playing time, because when you go there, there's 3 of you that are just as good, if not better, every time in every position. Perfect example of that. Indiana now has Zen Mikowski, who went to Floyd Central, my high school, who moved over from Ohio State. He got he was, he was swayed to Ohio State early on. I get it, but now he's at Indiana. And so to me, that's a win for Indiana because he's had some great training at Ohio State. So, he's a good player, and boy, he's big, man, is he big. And obviously they think he's a worthy player. So you still end up with some of those guys because the grass is not always greener, especially in this day and age of college football. Hey, it's all changed. Indiana made the CFP last year, and there are going to be more teams, including Indiana, again, that are going to do that. Illinois is a team that barely missed the CFP, and that's going to continue to especially if they expand this thing. You no longer have to be at Georgia or Ohio State to be in the big time, and that's great. I had such a blast watching college football last year. I know that it's not your beat, but so many of these guys go out and leave this state and are playing on so many of these teams.
Oh, I love college football. That's a good thing about covering high school football is normally the games aren't on Saturday. Now, last year we had 3 weather things that moved games to Saturday, so I didn't quite get my college football fix as much. But yeah, that's one thing I really enjoy is watching guys that I've covered play football and basketball really. But yeah, being able to watch them play on the next biggest stage. This class too, like guys like Mark Zachary who going to Notre Dame and people like that. It's always fun for me to be able to watch those kids I've covered over the years, even at the smaller, like the FCS and even Division II and NAIA Division III on down. It's fun to see what those guys do beyond high school at the next level. But yeah, IU, I think you want to IU and other schools too. And if you miss out on a kid or you're close, you're in their top 3 or something, you want to leave things on good terms for just what you just said there. That you may be able to get in on those guys later. If a kid goes to Ohio State or wherever else and is not playing, and he goes into the portal, you might be the next team in line at that point. So you want to maintain good relationships, even if they don't pick you originally, because who knows how things go, coaching change, playing time, other things happen, and all of a sudden that kid's looking for a home, and you're comfortable with that kid. You want to maintain good relationships, and it's not. I know some coaches are talking about tampering and people doing. I'm not talking about that. I'm just saying leave things on good terms when when the recruitment ends, and it could come back around. And you may end up in a good position with that player in the future, and he may be a big part of your team, even if he doesn't pick you originally.
I know basketball is, when it comes to Indiana recruits, the prep guys, Indiana known for basketball, always has talent. Big time talent, and always has a litany of guys playing in college so far. How close is football to that right now? They have Indiana produces, some good football players, not the numbers that say a Texas or Ohio or Pennsylvania does, but the best are still pretty damn good. If you got guys that are going to Ohio State and Alabama and those places, pretty good.
Yeah, and if you look at I always look at the national rankings, and some of them do a better job than others. The High School Football America, I always think they do a pretty good job of ranking the Indiana teams, and they put out like a top 300, and 6 of the Indiana teams are actually in the top 200 going into the now. That doesn't mean everything, but it's good to see that if you have 6 Indiana teams in the top 200 in the country, that's that's a pretty good percentage of teams, and that's I would say that's relatively regular. So the top 6A teams, I think, in our state can really compete at a very high level. I'm not saying they could go into Texas and win the Texas championship or, whatever, but I think on a competitive scale, the 6A programs are doing really well. Now we do produce a lot of football talent where Indiana's probably always going to be known for basketball, and Indiana continues to produce, really high talented basketball players. And it's a very close thing to everyone's heart who lives in Indiana, I think, and that's something they like to be known for. But I agree. I think football has taken on a bigger, I don't know what the word is, just bigger, higher profile maybe than it used to. And I think what would really help too is if you had a quarterback come from Indiana who really went out and just lit it up and, on the bigger stage. And I think that would even bring more attention to the state. And, we've missed, I wouldn't say we've missed. We just maybe haven't had quite that guy that's just gone out and lit the world on fire as a quarterback. We've had some other positions do well, but that's a tough one.
There were a couple of guys back in the day, but they both ended up. Didn't Jeff George end up at Illinois?
Mm-hmm.
And Jay Cutler ended
up
at Vanderbilt.
Yeah, Cutler, and we've had like Brandon Peters more recently from Avon, who went to Michigan and then Illinois. He was a sensational.
Rex Grossman, there you go.
Yeah, Grossman. So we've had some in the past.
But they've all gone out of state.
Yeah, and we haven't had the, just more recently, just the guy who's just gone out and it's hard to, because quarterbacks basically only one can play. So it's just a hard thing you have to go to the right fit, the right level. And, it doesn't always work out that way. I would say our percentage is probably similar to other states that way too. It's a tough position to project sometimes to the next level. So, but yeah, I mean, to your bigger point, I think we are producing a lot of talent in state. I think that's something that we should be proud of here.
Yeah, and before, let's be honest, Purdue and Indiana were Purdue and Indiana when it comes to football. They were about basketball. Now, Purdue has had some success in the past, not currently. Indiana never really having success. I mean, blips, but this is a real deal. Indiana, this is not a flash in the pan. They are going to be a better team this year than they were last year. And I see that continuing because of what I've seen from Curt Cignetti. He knows what the hell he's doing without question in every aspect when it comes to game management, when it comes to game calling, when it comes to recruiting, his coaching hires. He has just done everything right. And I don't see that changing, which is great. Because now you have that will raise, and I think that will cause Purdue to raise. I think Indiana's success last year led Purdue to saying, you know what, it's only been 2 years, but this is not going well. We got to cut bait. And they did that. Few schools will fire a coach after 2 years, especially in football. Never before, but in this day and age, I think that's changed. Indiana didn't do that in basketball with Mike Woodson, and they should have. They kept him a damn year too long, and I think it cost them. I'll be honest with you. I think that had they hired Dusty May, I'm not saying Darren DeVries won't do great. He's probably going to do just fine. But they could have also had a very successful Dusty. I think Dusty May is going to really reinvigorate Michigan and just look out. He's going to be a problem up there. But he could have been a problem at Indiana. And they have just continued to miss the boat on hires. And they did it again. And well, again, hopefully Darren DeVries has we'll see if that has solved that. They've damn sure done it with Curt Cignetti, which is still the biggest miracle in college football that I can think of. Seriously, a team that was the worst in all of D1 football history, all of a sudden is a player at the national level. It's not just because of the transfer and all the money that's available, because Indiana was still Indiana. It took the right guy, and Curt Cignetti is damn sure that guy. And I think that the recruits around the state are going to continue to love what he's doing at Indiana.
Yeah, and look at you bringing the conversation back to basketball. Like,
it's so easy.
Yeah, I know. But, I agree. I think, seasons like last year at IU, it's like it was almost like a movie script. And I agree. I think I'll be curious what the floor is for IU. Like, you think the football playoff is probably the ceiling, not to say they can't do it again, but it's like, man, that's hard to do. What's the floor? Making a bowl game, I think that's, if that's the floor for IU football, that'd be great. And I agree. He knows how to run a program. I've had, back when he was hired, I talked to a player locally who played for him at Dylann, and he's like, this guy's going to win. And, of course, you're skeptical, going into that, but it's like, turns out that's correct. He does know how to build a program and win immediately, and now it's just a matter of, what can you do next? And, I think the future, the current situation is really bright for IU. And I think when you talk to kids about IU too, it always has some cachet, but now it's like on another level. So you've gotten to a point already in year one where the script has really changed with IU football, and that's pretty cool to see. And I think Purdue with Odom, I like his. I think he's a guy too that has had success, and he kind of knows how to run a program. And I'm not saying they're going to get to where IU is in year one, but I think he's got a good plan, and I think they'll. I think he'll do well there. But to expect that was probably a little much in year one. But I think Cignetti has IU on a different plane right now.
And I know you've got a lot of things going on with previews for the high school prep season that is quickly upon us right now. You've got the 20 top wide receivers to watch in Central Indiana. I'm sure before that you've had, unless this is the first in your series, you've had other positions in that.
Yeah, we had quarterbacks, I think, last week, running backs as well. One was 2 weeks ago, one was last week, and then we'll have Friday. We'll have another story too. Mostly been running these on Fridays. Now we're going to ramp it up, probably two at least a couple things a week, and probably more than that even as we get closer to the season. Have some stuff coming on the Coaches Confidential series, which has been fun to do. Have some real interesting answers on that this year. And then our gyms projects too. Our Lost Gyms project runs every Monday. I think we have 4 left of those. We did 10 this summer. Jasper ran last week, and then I'm forgetting which one ran. Oh, Crawfordsville ran this week. So those will continue to run out the next 4 or 5 weeks as well.
Make sure you're being a subscriber. Keep local papers alive, and so you can continue to get great content like Kyle provides. There's probably not a better high school coverage in the country than what Kyle does. He's done it for a long time, and he knows more people, more names, more coaches, more players, more schools than probably anybody in the world. I wish I had the brain capacity that you have, and you do great work. Great respect it, and I love it. I love reading it. So appreciate you, but appreciate you for being with us today as well as always, man. What is up next for you?
I appreciate that, Jim. Yeah, we've got a look at Mr. Football candidates will run on Friday. And then, like I said, our super team stuff, we're doing that this week. So that'll be a couple weeks down the road. But, lots more football coming, and also some basketball stuff as well. But mostly heading into football right now, and there's plenty to write about.
Absolutely. Who is there a non-quarterback on that list?
Yeah, there is. But I think, Heritage Hills has a couple of guys that I think, that will have a good chance at. One is a quarterback, and then Tyler Ruxer, who's going to OU for football. He'll be pretty high on that list as well. But yeah, there are some guys, and I think maybe a list that Casimir Hicks could move up. He's already won a state championship. He's going to IU. That obviously can help you. But yeah, there are some. How they do it for football is, you win Mr. Football Position Award, and then you're sort of piled into the bigger award running. So only one quarterback can make it to that list, and you've got other positions too. Now, quarterbacks do have an advantage. Running backs, receivers normally win it. Running backs and quarterbacks mostly. But yeah, we'll see. It should be I think it's a little bit more wide open than maybe it was last year when Zachary won it.
We'll certainly be keeping up, and make sure you are keeping up with Kyle and following him as well. Kyle, thank you, buddy, as always. Appreciate you.
No problem. Have a good week, Jim.
You as well, sir. Back with more from the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios after this.
The ISC Sports Network is your home for sports content across the Hoosier State. Find us live on TV and streaming or archived on our website and our app. The ISC is your one-stop shop for the content you want to see, including high school sports, college sports, and other great events throughout the year. Subscribe to our streaming service and get access to it all. ISC. Local lives here.
Know a team or group needing a fundraiser? Boost Fundraising raises more money faster and offers the most unique and user-friendly online fundraiser in the nation. Your team receives personalized fundraising pages for each team member. Free team-branded promo gifts shipped to each donor. Boost Fundraising does it all. Sports teams, marching bands, charity causes, and community groups. Go to boostfundraising.com and be sure to enter the promo code COYLE, that's C-O-Y-L-E, to receive a discounted fundraiser.
If you're looking for a new home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore from Brick and Ivy Realty. Cheryl Sizemore has over 2 decades of experience, and that could be the difference in getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl at CherylSizemore@gmail.com or 317-701-0838. That's 317-701-0838. Let Cheryl Sizemore sell or find your new home today.
When it comes to apparel and promotions, Freethink has you covered, literally, whether it's 24 or 200 shirts for sports leagues, businesses, or groups. Freethink Apparel and Promotions can also create your very own merchandising store. Freethink Apparel and Promotions did it for Indiana Sports Beat Radio, and they can do it for you. Whether it's screen printing, embroidery, digital printing, promotional products, vehicle wraps, or anything else under the promotional line. See what Freethink Apparel and Promotions can do for you at freethinkapparel.com. Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle on this Wednesday. Glad to have you along, coming from the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios, and appreciate everybody that has joined us before now. Lots of football to talk about right now. The Colts, how about the Colts? Training camp underway. Chris Ballard, I saw Dan Dockage had a tweet yesterday that I believe is probably true. Chris Ballard's job is on the line without question this year. I don't think that I'm not even sure that the passing of Jim Irsay really has anything to do with that. But you do have the change at the top with his daughters, Carly Irsay Gordon, Kaylin Jackson, and Casey Foyt are now teaming up to run the Colts. And not making the playoffs, not being a winner, or not doing well in the playoffs, not acceptable. If the goal is to win, the goal is to make the playoffs. The goal is to play well in the playoffs, to compete for the best. And so that has not been the case under Chris Ballard's tenure. And I there's no doubt that his rear end is very, very, very warm because of the seat that he sits in. So they're going to have to be a better team. Have had the quarterback issues. The drafting of Anthony Richardson, that's going to end up being a gigantic, well, it already is, a gigantic bust. And, this is a franchise that has gone from Peyton Manning to Andrew Luck. And then you make that very, very, very risky move that did not work out. And so we'll see how the Colts, how if they change, because the players, they also feel the pressure. It's their job to do well and to play well. But we'll see. And Shane Steichen, how much is his job tied into that, even though he has no bearing over the players? The GM, the difference in college athletics and pros. College, the coaches get the players they want. They go out and recruit and do all that. And in the pros, you have a general manager. Has nothing to do with coaching. He's all about personnel, and they're the ones that fill the rosters. Now, I'm not to say that a coach doesn't have input or this and that, but it comes down to the GM. That's his job to sign the players needed for the coach to run with. And if you don't give a trainer a good stable of thoroughbreds, you're not going to win many races.
Doesn't matter how well you train them. You've got to have studs, and we'll see how that goes. But hopefully they can get it turned around, because Indiana football fans are tremendous. The Colts fans are tremendous. Look what Indiana football did last year. The crowds. It took a couple of games for people to believe, but man, they believed early and said, "We're going," and started selling out Memorial Stadium. That had only happened on the occasions when Michigan and Ohio State would come in and probably buy a third of the tickets. No longer is that the case. No longer is it the case when teams like Illinois will come in, when Michigan or Ohio State come back to Bloomington. It will not be their people filling up the seats. It will be Indiana. So that is great to see the Hoosiers, and they still need to expand the stadium. And by expand, I don't mean crazy. I call it a press box, but it's more than a press box. It has the suites and all that. We already know they need one of those that goes from one end to the other, probably on the west side where the press box currently is, to not be facing the sun on all of those games. But and honestly, that would block the sun from the people on the other side having to have that in their face when it's warm out. Now, when it's cold out, you're probably going to miss that. But that is something that I'm not saying anything that I know Scott Dolson doesn't know, and it could be in the works, and we don't know that, because we know that they've been trying to make changes. Before it was feasibly, it wasn't really cost prohibitive, because you weren't getting the people. So now they're getting the people, and they're getting the Big Ten money, TV money. So it's time. They have, without question, the worst press box in all of the Big Ten. Schools that are so much smaller have better press boxes. Purdue's has been there for a few years now. Very nice, end to end, all those suites for people. And Indiana is close enough to Indianapolis. There are businesses here, but lots of businesses in Indianapolis that would buy those, individuals that will buy those. And that's one way to increase the stadium. I think there are things that they can do on the south end of the stadium, where they enclose that, and it just has that kind of patio area. I think that they could build seats up in those on each corners, and maybe around the top of that, and turn that into like a flight deck of some sort. I don't know that there's a lot they can do on the north end that has seats, but it also has those offices. I mean, anything would have to be built above. So the suites would add some people. You could probably get it up to 60,000 maybe with suites. I'm not sure, but definitely with seats in the corners and above that. But Robert says the east side needs an upper deck added on. And I wonder about that, because, again, the sun. Do people want to sit and stare at the sun, which what they would be doing? But the press box would help that greatly. If they made an addition to the east side, that would be a substantial increase in seating capacity. Right now, they're pretty much maxed out at 53,000. That's not big in big time football. I mean, I'm not saying that they need to be a Michigan with 111,000, or Ohio State with 103,000, or 100,000 or 80,000, but their stadium needs to be 68, 70,000 people. If you can get 70,000, you're making more money. Your home crowd has a bigger impact on the game, which has never been the case for Indiana. And that would be probably about right. I don't know what would be needed to reach that number. I don't know what adding the new press box with the suites alone, how much would that add? And then if you could put seats in the corners, like I suggested, that I don't know how much that would add, but it might not get them up to 70,000, and maybe there would have to be another addition. We'll see. Russell says Notre Dame's capacity is 80,000. Yeah, but that was after they added on years ago. You used to be able to see the touchdown Jesus from about everywhere in the stadium. Not the case anymore. It still drives me nuts that they didn't cut a little slot out right there at that end. But anyway, you've got to they've got to increase. Jason says parking is always an issue, and it's an issue now because it's a good point. There's already people have to park across the street at the church. If there's some lots over there, Indiana would possibly have to. I'm trying to think of where they could even purchase to add more parking. It's already full. When they sell out a game, it's full. People are parking across the street then. And but that's a problem that people would would figure out. And that would be a great problem to have. Jason says there's still a huge area in the grass lots. I don't know that there's that much area left when a game is sold out, though. It gets pretty full over there, but we'll see. Russell's asking, will IU see a new football stadium before a new basketball arena in the next 100 years? That's a good question. No, not a new football stadium. They don't need a new football stadium. They just need to add on. So no, there's not going to be a new football stadium. It's not needed. They just need to add on to the current one and update it. That's all. Now, Assembly Hall, I'll be honest with you, as much as I love the tradition and love the fact that all the things that have happened there, and be honest with you, would hate to see it go away. As a basketball arena, it sucks for fans. There's only, a certain level where it's good. And after, there's 46 or 7 rows, I think, on the main level no, there's more than that, right? I think 46 maybe the end of the okay area. And it's because of the design. And while it was designed for noise, and it does a great job of that, nobody wants to sit in the freaking balcony. It's like being in the next neighborhood to watch a game. The height is unbelievable. It sucks. It really does. And I don't think they can rearrange that arena in a way that eradicates the problems. Purdue's Mackey Arena, perfect. A nice circular, it's a little too small. If Indiana had Mackey Arena and it held 17, 18, 19,000 people, that's what they need. That's exactly what they need. It is perfect because you have a great wrap of fans all the way around the floor, and it would just be a great improvement. The Yum Center in Louisville, people really love that arena. So we'll see what happens in the future, especially after they put the $40 million in it a while back. So Jason asking, is the football stadium structure capable of building on it? I don't see why not. It's concrete. It should be no problem. And they would, anything new would be structurally sound. They would engineer it to be such thing. And it's sitting on concrete, which is probably sitting on freaking limestone. There you go. It's
It has nothing to. The stadium is fine. That's what I'm saying. It just needs to be increased. That's all. And they just need to be able to figure out how to engineer to do that. That's something they probably should have thought about, though, when they enclosed the ends of the stadium. They should have thought, what happens in the future if Indiana gets good and we need to build on, because they didn't think of that either time. I'm going to take a quick break. I'm going to come back. Coach Griff will join us. We'll talk more about Big Ten football media days, and I'll throw a little basketball in as well. On the backside, from the Hard Truth Distilling Company Studios.
Andy Moore Honda is Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer for a reason. Buy a new Honda and get a 3-month break from car payments. That's right, no payments for 90 days. That includes the all-new, all-electric Honda Prologue, and you get it for just 0.9% financing. Or the 2024 Honda Ridgeline Black Edition or the Honda Accord LX, both for just 1.9% financing. Get more to your door from AndyMooreHonda.com, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer and your best place for new and used vehicles. If you're looking for a new home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore from Brick and Ivy Realty. Cheryl Sizemore has over 2 decades of experience, and that could be the difference in getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl at CherylSizemoreSells@gmail.com or 317-701-0838. That's 317-701-0838. Let Cheryl Sizemore sell or find your new home today.
Located on 325 acres in beautiful Brown County, Indiana, Hard Truth Distilling Company is the biggest and the best craft distillery around. While Hard Truth is already known for producing internationally awarded whiskeys and spirits like Hard Truth's sour mash bourbons, sweet mash, and hard road ryes, as well as their cinnamon vodka and the always popular toasted coconut rum. Hard Truth Distillery offers so much more. With a full-service restaurant, ATV, and distillery tours, as well as live music, you can spend an entire day at Hard Truth Distillery while making your entire family or group happy. And that's the Hard Truth. Hard Truth products are available across Indiana, as well as many other states. So no matter where you shop, if they don't carry your favorite Hard Truth product, tell them you want the truth, the Hard Truth. Hard Truth Distilling Company encourages you to enjoy all of their products responsibly and to never drink and drive. Welcome back to the Hard Truth Distilling Company Studios on this Wednesday. Jim Coyle with you as always, joined now by Coach Griff, who thank you again for filling in on Monday, brother. Appreciate you.
Anytime, partner.
Don't worry, it'll be more. But and the people love it. You're doing a great job. Thank you so much. Yesterday, obviously, the kickoff of Big Ten Media Days, and Kurt Cignetti did not disappoint.
Never does.
Never does is right. And he's got to become, usually it was always Ryan Day and the Michigan coach, whomever it is, whether it's Jim Harbaugh or now Sharon Moore, but Kurt Cignetti is becoming the guy that people want to hear from. But it's not just hear from. They're questioning this schedule crap, why it's being brought up. Last year's over. Who gives a crap, first of all, number one. Number two, is that what good is that doing anybody? Why are you talking about last year's schedule? Why are you not talking about the upcoming season, which is what this is about? And you want to talk about a schedule? Then look at their schedule now. They play at Iowa, at Oregon, and at Penn State. Shut up.
Yeah.
Let the season play out. Shut up. I'm sick of those people.
Yeah.
And it's not because I'm, an Indiana supporter, because I stay neutral. But I can also see idiocy. And it's just, I think it's a way for people to get noticed or whatever, or to try to draw a Signettiism out, which that's probably a bigger part of it, but because they know that, boy, his fuse is about this long.
Yeah.
And you don't even need a lighter to light that thing. Just hit a flint one time. That thing's going, baby.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can see the politicking already occurring about schedules. Even within the big,
and that you just hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
That is exactly what it is. Politicking early right now.
Yeah. And I thought, the criticism is, they canceled the Virginia game at a G5 school. And that was the question that was presented to him. And he answered it very truthfully and honestly, like he always does. Some people don't like these answers. Some people understand his answer. But the bottom line is he gave an answer as to why the non-conference schedule is irrelevant in this day and age of the college football playoffs. And he doesn't feel that they need to put themselves out there when the SEC does the same darn thing. And and only plays 8 conference games. So he's, his answer was spot on. And he's, you don't complain about the Big Ten in Indiana, complain about the SEC and their scheduling tactics, because they are doing the same thing without any scrutiny. Yeah. And he pointed right out. I mean, he had all the data, the statistics about how many G5 schools the SEC plays, how many FCS schools the SEC plays, and then added to it one less conference game. And, his assessment of that is right. So the debate isn't about Indiana's schedule. The debate is about the SEC and how they schedule their conference with only 8 games and then allow them 4 non-conference games to fill out their schedule. And that was what he was trying to say. Now, people are going to point to Ohio State and Texas playing and, some of the power brokers of those conferences in terms of teams playing those teams. Well, that doesn't mean every Big Ten team has to go play, a top 10 team just to have legitimacy on their playoff resume at the end of the year. And that's the thing that people seem to go to, that if you don't play X for some reason, if you go through the schedule of the Big Ten and it just happens to be maybe not what people thought it was before the season is, you shouldn't get in. Well, that's an asinine assessment. Just like Tony Petitti said, if you looked at Indiana's resume last year on scheduling, they played the previous year's national championship, the national championship runner-up, and they had all these other schools, Nebraska included, that had a perception of being a pretty darn good schedule prior to the year starting. Well, when they boat raced all of those guys, except, they played a tough game against Michigan, all of a sudden people were crying about it. And it's not about the end. It's about where you're at in the point in time. And I think he answered it well. I think he answered it poignantly. And hey, you don't have to look too any further to Loxley at Maryland, giving the same answer, but saying, I agree with everything that Coach Sig just said. So, I mean, you're not going to take Sig on anything. He's too smart of an individual that has things thought out, planned out, and figured out before the question is even answered by anybody.
I didn't say that like that, but I said something very similar earlier. Everything he has done with Indiana football has been, from his staff to the recruiting to game planning to game calling, has been uber successful.
Mm-hmm.
And look at the recruiting. Everything he does is exactly like you just said. He knows what he is doing. He plans what everything is going to be. Failing to plan is planning to fail.
Correct.
He has every single thing. He knows what's going on with everything. I don't know how he does it, to be honest with you, because from a time aspect, the time that he has to put in, it would boggle my mind, because he is on top of every single thing. You look at how recruiting is handled. Every recruit loves their engagements with him. The fans have fallen in love with him because what he says, he backs up. He's not BSing. If you can do it, it ain't bragging. He's done everything he said he's going to do. And I love that. And I love the moxie. And it cracked me up. I know that Barry Odom was probably trying to just get some attention, some notoriety. I'm a little surprised that Cignetti let that off as easy as he did, to be honest with you. But I think that's because he already decided, filed away for November 29th. And on November 29th, ding, that little reminder that we set in our phones, or I do, is going to go off in his brain. And that 66-0 thrashing last year, I wouldn't be surprised if he tries to make it 76-0 this year.
Yeah. Odom chose the wrong venue to make the comment that he made.
I just rewatched the movie Gran Torino the other day, and there's a great line by daggone it, who's the star?
Clint Eastwood.
He's an elderly guy, and he pulls up to these young, kind of thuggy guys that are giving a guy and a girl a hard time. The guy's kind of a wuss, but the girl lives in a neighborhood or next door to him, and the line is, "Have you ever messed with a guy and realized it was the wrong guy to mess with?" And I'm like, it was just a great line. It's just coming from some old man, but that's Signetti. You ever realize you messed with a wrong guy that you shouldn't have messed with? That's him. I really believe that. He's probably, if you don't do that, you'll be fine. But if you try to poke that bear, man, don't think he's not going to remember.
Well, like I was saying, he's not going to punch down. He's going to punch up. And he right now doesn't need to punch down at Purdue. They have a lot to prove under Barry Odom. We'll see what all happens when the year starts, because you never know in the Big Ten now, or even across the country with the portal, and he's completely flipped the roster at Purdue. I think he's brought in 50 plus transfers, if I'm not mistaken.
That's a lot.
Yeah, he totally transformed the roster by just normal nutrition, and then of course him asking people to move on. So I mean, right now, like you said, I don't think he feels like he has to punch down and give him any airtime and create a feud that puts Purdue in the spotlight. He wants to keep the spotlight on Indiana and what they're going to plan on doing this year, and let Purdue go be Purdue. But I think that again, everything about Sig has always been about being in the now. He is always about being in the present. Don't worry about tomorrow. Don't worry about yesterday. Worry about today mentality. And he's got that mentality with the players. And you listen to them discuss and talk about how they approach each and every day. And I think Sig's excited. I think he's cautiously optimistic about this team outwardly, but inwardly, I think he's excited about what he has as a roster and who he's got at the key positions, such as Mendoza at quarterback. I think he gives a very standard answer when asking about quarterbacks per se. You got to put it on the field before you can talk about it and things like that. But I think deep down, he knows he's got a pretty darn good QB coming in to take charge of the offense that they put out on that field. And on top of that, I think he's ecstatic about every, skill position group. He talked about the running back room. He talked about Hemby and his work ethic and, all the things that he's done since he's arrived at Indiana. I think he's excited about him. I mean, there's a lot of things that I think is very
There's a lot
guarded.
of things to be excited about. I'm telling.
Well, he's guarded
earlier,
and he's guarded by what he says, and that's the important part.
Exactly. And we'll talk more about this tomorrow when Coach
Absolutely
at his normal time. I appreciate you jumping on today to rehash some of it. Go to thehoosier.com. It is full of everything that went on, complete with all of the interviews. There is some exclusive stuff on there as well. If you haven't gotten a subscription yet, you're missing out. Just $1 to check it out, 50% off for the first year. It has more information than any site out there, guaranteed. Or your money back. I'll say that myself. Coach, appreciate you, brother.
Absolutely, partner. See you tomorrow.
Appreciate each and every one of you guys. We're back tomorrow to do more of this, and I look forward to it. Until then, go out and have yourselves a great day. I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.